So you know the line, it's not you, it's me? Well, it is you and me, and I'll tell you why. When you feel resentment, you drink the poison and hope the other person dies. When you feel resentment, you drink the poison hoping the other person will die. What is that line and who wrote it? If I can find out, I'll credit them in the show notes. That is genius. It's up there with Budgie Smugglers as a brilliant, brilliant line. I said this line in one of my recent videos, and I've understood it at a whole mix of levels in regards to recovering from past hurts or even trauma. Now, I really need to say here, I am not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I am a coach and I'm qualified through Curtin University, which I'm proud of, but I don't pretend to be an expert in these other ways and in these challenges that people experience in the most formal form. I think it's important to say that, particularly around this topic and what I'm going to talk about, because I want to most respect people who have been diagnosed with different things and the serious incidents that those things could have come from. So how does the line, drinking the poison and hoping the person dies, relate to what I learnt? Some time ago, I watched a fellow on Instagram, whose name I forget, but I'll insert the link here, who talked about the fact that when bad things have happened to us, the person we're often not actually angry with is the person who did the bad thing. The person we're angry with is ourselves for not having stood up for ourselves. And I've understood that at different times, but yesterday it really hit me. So what I realised, two things happen. One, I realised that I have a stress response running in my body that has never really shifted, and it actually began in Sydney about 22 years ago and probably before then, but it was compounded by another experience in Perth, and in both instances, people with particular personalities treated me very, very badly in a way that I suspect of maintaining their own power and ego, but I'm not in their minds. I won't give too many specifics, but just so you're not too curious, the first was around a self-development course that I was doing through Landmark Education that some of you will have heard of and will have done the forum. And I say a little bit like religion, it's the best and worst thing in the world. The premise is a good premise, and then when the wrong people get involved, it can become an abusive environment, and that's what happened for me. The second was around a very important new client when Discern was new, and in both cases, in the first, the person was extremely demanding and abusive if I was not responsive to his phone calls. I have been afraid of the phone ringing ever since. That might sound dramatic, but my friends and family can tell you I'm extremely difficult to get hold of on the phone because I have it on silent for that reason. It was really bad. And in the second, there was a constant threat around loss of work, loss of income. The person kept threatening to finish working with us, and for our new business, it would have been devastating. It probably would have ended the business that both Andy and I were in. So what I thought versus what I saw. So for all those years, 22 years, 8 or 9 years, I felt that the people I was dealing with were, see you next Tuesdays. I can't actually even say that word here. And honestly, I do still think that, like they were the worst, absolutely the worst, and probably still are today, unless they've had some sort of miraculous intervention. But what I realised yesterday is this: the thing that will set me free is a combination of things. One, forgiving myself for not standing up for myself. It is me I'm angry at. I let myself down. I let them treat me badly. But additionally to forgiving myself, or as a part of the forgiveness, understanding why I didn't. In the first case, I was in a very particular time of my life. I was lost and lonely and afraid and overwhelmed. And the course I was doing at the time was my lifeline to social connection and purpose. And I could not stand up to that fellow. I just couldn't do it. So understanding why I didn't. In the other case, if I had challenged the person threatening to ruin our work, they would have removed us most likely. The very thing I was worried about, I felt like I needed to dance around. So I had good reasons, but I'm still really angry with myself. And of course, now I'm starting to forgive myself. Recognising that I have actually been angry at myself this whole time is what really helps, right? knowing, oh, I don't need to talk to them really. I need to heal me. I need to forgive me. But I also think expression is useful. So to express how those experiences were for me, and for me it would be in writing or creating an audio message, but not sending it. I mean, I don't think that would be particularly useful from a number of directions. It might be for you useful, but for me, the length of time ago, some of them I wouldn't even know how to find. But writing it out and burning it, or creating audio, listening to it until I'm bored of it, would be very useful, I think. And I'll do that activity over the next couple of days. I did it with one person separate from this story, and it actually did reduce their power for me, having written out the whole story of their impact. So when we give ourselves responsibility, we also get the power. It's whether you want to have the power and joy if you're willing to get the responsibility, but we avoid pain more than seek pleasure. So it's hard to be responsible. It's so hard that I think it can be very hard to choose, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for what happened, particularly if it happened when you're a child, particularly when you had no power. And both things happened to me as an adult. And as I've said previous, and I'll re-say, I am in no way an expert on this subject. I am not saying I know what you should do. I know what happened in your case, or that I'm even right. I'm just sharing this because for me, in my examples, it opened up a complete access to freedom from an ongoing terrible level of fear and pressure that was based on past events, not present reality. I am not solved. I would say that I do have PTSD, but I've said a number of times now, I'm not an expert. I haven't been diagnosed. I might be wrong about that. But what I have noticed is this: if I can really forgive myself for not standing up for myself and express what I needed to say, even if I never say it to them, if I keep bringing myself back to the present moment and get as much help as I can around what is my current reality and healing what has happened before, even potentially by inquiring around therapies like EDMR. The reason that I'm sharing what worked for me around taking responsibility is the miracle of something that happened recently. Part of the way I realised what had happened and why responsibility was so important and why not standing up for myself had embedded the pain and embedded the anger for me was actually that something that happened recently, where I had a terrible incident in the car park of Midland Gate shopping centre. I shouldn't laugh, it's a very dangerous place. If you're from Perth, you'll understand. If you're from the hills, you'll understand even more. Midland Gate has a certain excitement based on the area it's based in. So I won't go into full detail for numerous reasons, but I was abused, name-called, filmed, which I felt like I was in some sort of American horror. I was called every name you can think of by several people, and it was really distressing, right? And it took me a while to get over. But here's the interesting thing. I am largely over it. I don't love that it happened. I do get maybe 1 out of 100 nervous driving into that car park, but I'm largely over it. But I didn't get over the 22-year-old thing, and I didn't get over the 8-year-old thing. Why? Because this time I stood up for myself. I said, even while the person was screaming in my face, do not talk to me like that. You cannot talk to me like that. Stop talking to me like that. And I didn't yell and scream and I didn't abuse, but I was strong. I said, that is not okay, even while, of course, I was shaking inside. Now, in the past, I would have fawned. This will be very interesting for those of you who are prone to playing the weaker role to survive, and I would say more often than not it will be women, but not always. So, fawning is one of the amygdala responses from our limbic system where you try to stay safe by appeasing the attacker. So many of you will have heard of fight, flight, freeze. Fawn is a newer understood version where you smile or laugh or soften the experience for the other attacker, and it doesn't matter how badly you're treated. So you can imagine if someone was abusing me and I was fawning, I would feel even worse that I hadn't stood up for myself. I felt like I'd supported their abuse, more self-hatred, more shame. But the time in Midland Gate, I didn't do that. I wasn't abusive, but I was clear. Do not talk to me like that. You cannot talk to me like that. I meant it, and when I drove away, I said, that's enough, and I drove away, right? So this adds weight to this theory I'm working with. You're angry at you, not the person, for not standing up for yourself. If someone has really hurt you, it may be you that you're angry with. for not protecting yourself, for not standing up. So what's the takeaway? What might be useful for you with the brackets of you use expertise if this is something that needs help from a professional. If you're at my level and are able to look at it and it calls to you, as I say, look at what has upset you in the past. Look at how you may, even secretly, and that was the big thing, I didn't know I was doing it, blaming myself for it or blaming yourself for it. Then understand as best you can you were doing your best. Tamara 52 would not have done the thing that Tamara 30 did. Tamara 52 with a new business under enormous strain would not do the same thing that Tamara 8 or 9 years would do, right? But recognise that you wish you'd had done differently, because it's not really about them. It's about what you're saying to yourself about how well, or in my case certainly not well, you looked after yourself. And oh my God, did the fawning add a whole level of pain to that. You're so funny, abusive person. No wonder I hated myself. So this is not about letting anyone off the hook. They were who they were, and likely they're as bad or were as bad as you remember. But if you want freedom, as usual in my belief system, responsibility is the key to that door. So we're actually mad at you, not them, and are you willing to realise it and, going through that pain, do yourself a favour?